Obviously, we're all talking about AI, and I love learning more about it, particularly from people that have been focused on it a long time. Avi Perez has been doing this for 16 years, and we dive into a bunch of different topics, including vectorization. Do you not know what that is? You probably should, because it may be part of the next big trend on this bonus episode of The Business of Tech. Today's episode is supported by Huntress. You want to focus on your clients and are always looking for ways to get more time. Use Huntress's fully managed cybersecurity platform to fight off cyber threats. Huntress is more than cybersecurity software for endpoints and identities. It's a 24/7 security operations center. It's security awareness training, community engagement, and dedicated partner support with an average CSAT score of 99.3%. Technology can only get you so far. Human expertise is what's needed to truly elevate and protect small businesses, and you get that with Huntress. Secure your clients and help them thrive with the #1 rated EDR for SMBs on G2. Visit huntress.com/MSP Radio to find out more. Well, Avi, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Very nice to be with you today, Dave.
Now, I got to start with the kind of historical perspective, because you've been at the helm of Pyramid Analytics for 16 years now. Some of us feel like AI just exploded on the scene. That's mostly because of what OpenAI did with ChatGPT. Give me a sense of your view of what's happened with AI, specifically around business intelligence over the past 16 years.
So, it's an interesting question, because I can't think of too many generic technology industries that have had AI as a central component for that long, and BI happens to be one of them. Pyramid itself has had AI embedded inside its product for ages, and AI is a broad category. It's not just the cool new chat LLM stuff. We're talking any kind of software or heuristic that can help a user to use software. And we differentiate AI from data science and machine learning. I mean, AI could be based on DSML, the abbreviation, but we separate it out because DSML is a slightly different part of the world. But AI itself, which is functionality in the product to help use the product, kind of like your map, your GPS map is a tool to help you navigate. That's a form of AI, and a very good example of it. We take it for granted today. In BI, AI has been around for years. And it's been anywhere from cool, slick, a wizardry that helps you use very complicated software, all the way through to, heuristics that can work out how to build a clever formula. And in more cool and modern eras, the automated insights, and we arrive to the current moment in time, which is the use of large language models to sort of superpower natural language querying. Which is sort of really at the rightest point in time, the cutting edge of the whole process. But I must add that NLQ, or natural language querying, has been around in BI for years. Pyramid has had it in its product for 5-6 years, and it predates the current version of LLMs that people know and I would like to think love. It's been around for a long time. It's just we're in a very different era now. Sorry, go ahead.
But it feels like something's a little different about now that we've supercharged them with LLMs. I feel like that's different. And in particular, the area I wanted to get your insight a little into is that I'd like to think a lot about how we make sure clients implement this responsibly and effectively. And it feels like there's a distinct gap between those product developers that are making the LLM empowered and supercharged products and the end customers. Do you think about the role that those service providers are going to play in making sure that is done responsibly and correctly, and specific services that you think are important there?
So there's no doubt. And I think to start at the beginning of your question, is there a gap between, I don't want to call it hype, because we've all seen the functionality. We've all played with it. It's not hype. It really does what it looks to do. But making that work, certainly in a business context, there's definitely a gap there. It's still a bit of a chasm to cross. But interestingly enough, at least in our opinion, this is from the pyramid perspective, it's not necessarily an issue of the LLMs themselves that have to do it. It's all the software that want to incorporate the LLMs. That's the chasm that needs to close. It looks a lot harder, and it is a lot harder than because of there's that gap. Then continuing that sort of thought process, who's going to close the gap? Well, part of it is the software vendor. Again, it's a pyramid story. But the entire success of Pyramid's gap closing strategy is the implementation of the data strategy, which brings us all the way back to the service provider, exactly the end. So to string it all together, it works something like this. The LLMs are absolutely phenomenal in terms of what they can do. I mean, their interpretive capability is mind-boggling. It's just amazing. It's a game changer from what was there, let's call it 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Then you need the vendor and the vendor software to use them properly and to make good use of them. This is a case of Pyramid and in our industry of all the other vendors. But none of it matters. None of it will really go anywhere without somebody feeding Pyramid and ultimately the LLMs of good quality structure, good quality data, and a deployment that is meaningful and reasonable. And from that perspective, it all sits on top of, to your point, service providers to make that happen. Otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out. And that's ultimately the story. And that ironically is the same problem that we had last year and 5 years ago and a decade ago. All the cool tools in the market are useless without the right people knowing which buttons to push to turn them on. It seldom is random people in a company. It requires a degree of expertise. It could be very sophisticated users in the company, and by and large, it's normally service providers and consultants who come in to make that happen. That's pretty much the story. It's been like that for years, and now we have the next era, which still requires that kind of sort of lifting to make it work.
All right, so that's the opportunity, right? That's for this audience. That is exactly the highlightable opportunity.
Correct.
Define for me what you think that looks like. What does that service offering look like? What's required to pull it together? Like, if you were building a managed services provider or a services provider today, what would that look like?
So, I'll tell you what it is right now, and I'll tell you what I think it will be in the next. I don't want to give a time frame because this thing is moving so quickly. If I said to you years, that would be stupid because it could be months. So it's let's call it the immediate to short term. Right now, the real lift is in the data space and turning on quality data and exposing it, which means good quality structures, semantics, well thought out designs that are good for analysis. In our space, that's a requirement. Once you have that, then Pyramid can itself, and I talk about our own, I would say this is probably generically true for any vendor that's in the equivalent space. Can come along, attach their own semantic capabilities to that data structure, and then expose them to the LLM, and poof, the end user who's going to talk to the LLM to get their answers will see a very seamless experience. So right this moment in time, the core services offering is that, and that, like I said a second ago, is very similar to what it was yesterday prior to the LLM. And if you weren't doing LLM-centric stuff, it's the same story. However, here's what's coming next. What's coming next is the next upgrade in the LLM deployment or integration. And it requires the next skill set, which is around two things. The first is vectorization of data. So I don't know if any of your listeners have heard of something called RAG. RAG is basically, to ultra simplify it, the business of taking proprietary corporate data sets, or let's call it information, and being able to query it and use it as part of the LLM flow without taking that information and putting it into the LLM itself. So let's assume I wanted to ask a question about my company, Acme Corporation. Give me 5 points about Acme's success. It's not like the LLM has the details on Acme. Well, what's probably happened is someone's taken all of Acme's documents, put them into some kind of a data lake. Let's typically something like a graph database. And then using RAG techniques, when I ask the question as an end user, it takes a piece of the database, vectorized, and the LLM, and merges it together and gives me an intelligent. that was probably a super oversimplification of the story. But roughly speaking, it's blending these two things together. So vectorization, in the broader sense, is the grand gluing together of public, open source information that the LLM has been trained on, that it knows about. What is the cost of pizza in Fifth Avenue on a Monday? It knew that because some website somewhere captured that, and so did the other 10,000 websites. And then something specific about my business, which is not public. And I ask a question like, can you tell me my top 5 performing salespeople? Well, the LLM has no idea who that is. What does it know about my sales team? It's not a public document anyway. And the vectorization is going to be the glue that brings in that private and public thing together. And that's where the service providers kick in. It's being part of the process to support the vectorization of the data, creating a very, very high quality semantic layering on top of that to make that vectorization work. And then ultimately using that people are using the word fine tune the LLM, but I don't think it'll ever be the idea of fine tuning, but more about fine tuning the vectorization process so that your end users can ask really, really idiosyncratic, specific, bespoke questions about themselves and use the power of the LLM to get an answer. I don't know if that was confusing what I just said, but this is the next era, and that's where the service providers are going to find a huge cornucopia of activity, because to make all those bits and pieces work is going to be quite a mission, and it's not something that software solves on their own. It's going to require people to sit down and make it work. Okay.
So I'm going to repeat this back there to you because I think I get it, and I want to make sure that I've done a good job of processing this. So the idea here is that the LLMs themselves, both open source that would be available to everyone, or a closed source one like something provided by an OpenAI, is trained on publicly available information, and we need to combine that with the private information that an organization has. A super simple example of that is when I'm interacting with a chatbot, and I say, "Hey, I want to talk about these 3 documents, and I've now provided them to you." That puts some context for the chatbot so that it's combining its public knowledge with the private one. And the vectorization is just this at a much larger scale. Have I gotten it?
Yep, you nailed it. And I would give you the real problem is, vectorizing or using your idea of 3 documents is one problem. What would you do if I handed you my corporate operations database with 1 billion rows of data in the fact that, it's impossible. And you can't really fine-tune your LLMs. People have misunderstood what fine-tuning means. So, yeah, this is exactly what needs to be now. You got it.
Cool. Now, I like complex problems because in mystery there is margin, and we can make money here, right? So, so I want to say, where do you think there's a role here? Is it about getting the data operation first? Is it what's the role, given all the problems we have with data quality and governance? What's the role of the service provider helping customers get to the point of being able to do vectorization?
So again, it's early days yet. Pyramid, for example, is working on prototypes right now to solve this headache, and it's a tremendously big headache. And there's lots of pieces of the technology equation that are still not clear yet. Let's call it the productionized capabilities in this space, especially around RAG for documents. And we're not talking about documents, we're talking about databases. It's a slightly different problem set. As powerful, as clever as they are, they don't really solve one of the issues. You just mentioned it: governance, data security, performance on such a vast scale. So all of those issues have yet to be solved. And I'm speaking of ourselves here. I'm sure there's somebody out there has got some magical capability already in the oven cooking away. But as it stands now, there's going to be a tremendous amount of input required on how to optimize the vectorization. Let me give you some examples. It's not unusual for us, and again about Pyramid, to come to a customer with a gigantic database. It's a data lake, it's a data warehouse, it's a data something. It's what I like to call somewhere in the data estate. It could be notionally 1,000 tables, and each table's got, 10 columns in it. Well, that could be 10,000 columns of data, regardless of depth. That's a lot of different things to consider. If I said you we're going to vectorize the whole thing, it could be a massive massive process, a huge job. And vectorization is not cheap. It's not necessarily easy. And more importantly, it basically almost means the doubling of it, literally in a functional sense right now, doubling. So you're going to, first of all, need someone who can come in and pare things back and cut the noise out. Someone who really understands the business problem and can understand the technological answer to the business problem without giving up on full technological leap that this would offer. The second thing would be, for example, an ability to sit down and work with vectorization tool. And I'm projecting here what it will be like to optimize the way they work so that we combine different fields and facts and whatnot into intelligent groupings such that they're most useful to the use case. An example could be such. Let's assume I have a customer table that glues on to your sales data warehouse, and the customer table's got 100 rows, 100 columns, and then there's another 100 in an adjunct table here and 100 in another adjunct table there. And you're capturing every last detail about the customer, their address, their gender, their children, their this, their that, and there's going to be thousands of facts. It could be impossible to load that up into a vector database and get the performance and the scale you want at the right cost. It's not going to be free, cheap, and there's going to be something to it. So someone has to come along and pare it back intelligently, understand the use case, and give not only just a prescription, but also enact that prescription to make it work. And I think it's going to require heavy lifting of a lot of very skilled, intelligent people to make that work. And in some respects, it's no different to me coming to you 2 years ago and saying, how would I build a reporting solution or an analytics solution on top of your data warehouse? And someone paring back the noise to something that is functional, usable to you. If I gave you everything, you get overwhelmed with just too much junk. Same idea, but just at a completely different league of functionality. And I would argue with a different implication. Because if it's too big, too fat, it can be too slow. And no one wants to wait 3 minutes for an answer to ask that a question you want an immediate answer.
So I'm not asking you for a timeline because I understand what you're getting at, that this is where it's going. But I think you've just properly identified the next portion of what data governance is going to look like for organizations. And I want to end there because that's the opportunity. Avi Perez is the co-founder and CEO of Pyramid Analytics, where he's led the integration of AI-driven business intelligence solutions for over 16 years. His work focuses on combining generative AI and business intelligence to simplify corporate decision-making, pioneering the concept of Gen BI to deliver actionable insights from natural language queries. Avi, this has been great. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated.
Looking to reach an audience of thousands of MSPs and IT service providers? Put your ad right here on the Business of Tech and be on the show that 64% of MSPs report having listened to. A recurring top 50 tech news podcast, there are affordable options for you to reach our audience, and we can support any budget. Podcast listeners are more engaged, have a higher level of brand retention, and are more willing to listen to ads here than any other avenues. Want to know more? There's information at mspradio.com/engage, including a button to book a time to talk. I'm looking forward to that discussion. The Business of Tech is written and produced by me, Dave Sobel, under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you like the content, please make sure to hit that like button and follow or subscribe. It's free and easy and the best way to support the show and help us grow. You can also check out our Patreon, where you can join the Business of Tech community at patreon.com/MSPradio, or buy our Why Do We Care merch at businessof.tech. Finally, if you're interested in advertising on the show, visit mspradio.com/engage. Once again, thanks for listening to me, and I will talk to you again on our next episode of The Business of Tech.
Part of the MSP Radio Network.